This is the OcuTrap R1, and we can see here that we have our mobile app open. You can control the trap through these buttons on the screen. So you can click open, that'll open the door. Click close, close it. You can also request images, so you can click this icon and you can update the image. And that usually takes a few seconds for the image to come through. You can also see the list of images on the screen. And then you can also hide this screen if you have a bunch of different traps, so you can see all of them at once. You can also delete images. And going to the controls, you have a number of different choices. You can request an updated GPS position. If you have an accessory connected, you can control that. You can also ask for a data update, which updates the current voltage, temperature, humidity sensor, and then if the inside sensor is detecting anything, you can also see its position right here. You can also buzz the trap, which will make a noise, and that will scare off non-target animals. You can reboot the trap, put in hibernation, which is putting the trap into a sleep mode, and you can also request an image. And then sometimes viewing the data charts can be helpful to see how your battery life is doing. And then there's some other options as well. And going to the settings, these are the main settings you'd use, which is setting the trigger distance. I usually set it to 8 inches, so the animal is far enough inside the trap. And that's the difference from the back of the trap to out. So if it's 8 inches, it's about right here. If you are anticipating catching smaller animals, usually you set that trigger distance a little bit further, so they don't have to be nearly deep inside the trap. You can also change the image size. Smaller images come through faster. It's your choice. You can also see the device info, like who's the owner of the trap and the warranty. And then there's a number of different settings you can change. So one of them that you may or may not want is the enhanced door closing. And this can be helpful when using the trap to help lock the door, because the door has this metal bar in the front, and when the door closes, it actually goes underneath this bar. And sometimes if the door closes on an animal, then it won't lock properly. So you want to enable that to relock the door. And I just enabled it so we can open the trap. And then we can close it, and we can see the relocking right there. Kind of up to you if you would like that. There's some other things you can change, like the camera time-lapse time in armed mode, just get more images. Usually the trap would be empty, so the time-lapse is not the most helpful thing, but it's nice to see what's around in that time. You can also rotate the image and do some other things, like change how bright the LEDs inside the trap are. They are IR LEDs, so they are invisible, but in the images you can tell if it's too bright, and you can actually change the brightness on those for a nighttime period. And then you can change some alerts, like battery alerts, pre-capture alerts, which is when an animal might be outside of the trap walking in, you can get an alert when they are walking in. You know, sometimes animals will play around at the front of the trap, so getting the pre-capture alert might give you a bunch of alerts, which can be nice to see what's in the area, but in some use cases it might be too many alerts. And then you can change the GPS interval, and you can do a number of different things, like you can change temperature alerts. You can set the threshold for the alert, so if the temperature is above 100 degrees, then you can get an alert, make sure the animal in there is not too hot, or if it's below a certain temperature, you'll get an alert. And you can also change capture intervals, which is basically a reminder that something is in the trap. And you can also crop the image, so sometimes the camera will capture the top of the pod, so you can crop that out. And then going into the actual pod, as we talked about the door, it uses this metal bar to lock itself. You can also remove these pins and take off the motor if something's not working properly to let the animal out. And over at the back of the pod, you want to use this latch to lock whenever you're trying to capture something, because this can go up and down. And that's useful when shipping the trap or moving it around or cleaning it, and also rebaiting it, because you can lift it up, put the bait underneath, and then close it again. And then going inside the pod, you can see the buttons, and you can use these to open and close the trap remotely and also arm it. Here's an example of opening it. You press the user button, hold it down, the door opens. Do the same. And then something else to note that's important is when you're arming the trap, you want to make sure that there's a clear line of sight pretty much from the middle of the pod, so that's that black piece in the back, to the front of the trap, because that's the sensor that detects animals going to the trap.